Let's take a look at how we write customer needs statements. Now, the first thing we have to do is interpret what the customer said into a needs statement. And in order to do that, we need to kind of think about how this is going to fit in the design process. And usually the customer statements don't really fit well with what we're doing in the design process. They'll say things like they don't like something or they prefer something else. So that's usually not what we're looking for. We need to have a need statement, which is kind of an open-ended statement about the product that we can use for coming up with a good design, coming up with options. We don't want to be too specific. It's not a form that you're going to be looking at. It's maybe something about the function of what the design is going to do. So let's take an example of a power screwdriver. Let's say that's our design that we're trying to make. And let's look at a couple examples of what was said. So the customer said, I like that the tip of the screwdriver is magnetized. And then if you're going to write some need statements from that, you can come up with, here's an example of two possible statements. One could say that the screwdriver has a magnetized tip, or you could say that the screwdriver retains the screw before it's driven. Now, which of those two do you think is better? Well, what we would like to have is a more generalization of the need statements. We want to express it in terms of what the product has to do, so not what it might look like. We don't want to talk about the form that it's going to take. We want to talk about the function that it's going to do. So it allows for more potential solutions. So just saying that it holds onto the tip of the screwdriver, that the screw stays on the end, is a better statement than saying that it has to have a magnetized tip, because that's a specific solution. Let's look at another example. So let's look at which is better of these two. This customer said, I drop the screwdriver all the time. So the interpreted need maybe could be that the screwdriver operates after they drop it a number of times. That would be an example of maybe them having to drop the screwdriver. Or you could say that the screwdriver is rugged. And which is better there? Well, those both seem like possible need statements, but what we want to do is that we want to express the needs specifically in terms of some raw data, and we don't want to use terms like rugged, which aren't really defined very well. We might have a feel for what rugged might be, but one person's definition of rugged might not be the same as someone else's definition of rugged, and a rugged screwdriver may be very different from a rugged another, like a truck or something like that. So the rugged term is a little less defined, it's kind of ambiguous. So saying something about maybe dropping it a specific number of times and saying it still has to work, that's pretty specific in kind of what the product has to do. When you say it's rugged, you know, how does the engineer going to know what that means? So. Some additional guidelines. You want to use some positive statements instead of negative statements when you're talking about the need statements. So, for example, that the screwdriver operates in the rain is a better statement than saying that the screwdriver is not disabled by the rain. It gets a little confusing sometimes when you're using negative statements. Another way we want to try to write these statements is write it as an attribute of the product itself. So, for example, the screwdriver battery can be charged from an automobile cigarette lighter is better than saying an automobile cigarette lighter adapter can charge the screwdriver battery, because then you're talking about what does the lighter in the car do rather than what does the screwdriver do. So saying something about the actual product itself, the screwdriver has a battery that can be charged. So that's a better statement there. Additional guidelines are we should avoid words like must and should, because then it gets a little ambiguous. The screwdriver provides an indication of the energy level of the battery is better than saying that the screwdriver should provide an indication of the energy level of the battery, because then it seems like, does it have to or does it not have to? By just stating something as an attribute of the product, then later on we can make decisions on if we're going to meet that desired need or if we're not going to meet that desired need. And some of the statements that you get from customers aren't really technically feasible. Some of them may be contradictory to each other. They could say they want it to be heavier. One person might say that, and someone else might say they want it to be lighter. So, or we might want to have more batteries, and then someone else might say you want it to be lighter. And those can be conflicting with each other. So sometimes those are hard to kind of sort out in the customer needs statement period, but we can maybe sort those out later on in the design process. So those are a few examples, some guidelines to help you, and hopefully you can write some customer need statements for your project. Thank you.